Hello and welcome to another discussion in social psychology. This is a continuation of our lessons on attitude change. But in today's session, we are going to look at the cognitive dissonance theory and how this theory explains how we by ourselves change our attitudes without any external persuasive messages or external influences. So in this session, we are going to look at the cognitive dissonance theory that was developed by Leon Festinger. It's a classic theory, but this theory explains how the individual attempts to change his own attitude without any external influences. So that the expectation at the end of this session is that you'll be able to explain the tenets of the theory and be able to identify as well as explain the various strategies that people use to minimize the impact of dissonance. The key topics we would cover in this session would be to define and explain the concept of dissonance, to look at the implications of dissonance, to look at the strategies that people employ to reduce dissonance, and as is our practice, we'll go through some questions in this session. The expectation is that you read chapter 5 of the required text and the article on cognitive dissonance that will be posted on Sakai. So to start with, what is the cognitive dissonance theory? The cognitive dissonance theory belongs to a group of theories, the consistency theories of attitude change. And there are a number of these theories, one of which is the cognitive dissonance theory. These consistency theories view attitude change as an attempt by the individual himself to gain cognitive balance or equilibrium. And mainly we are talking about the theories of balance, the theories of congruity, and in this instance, the cognitive dissonance theory. So basically, what does this theory suggest? The cognitive dissonance theory emphasizes the psychological comfort or discomfort of the individual. In fact, according to this theory, when an individual's cognitions and behavior do not fit, or when the behavior and the cognitions clash, the individual would experience psychological discomfort. So for instance, smoking is harmful. If you believe that smoking is harmful and you do not smoke, there is consonance, there is an agreement between your belief system, your cognition, and your behavior. So you do not experience dissonance. What you rather experience is consonance. So if you behave in a way that is consistent with your beliefs and values and attitudes, yes, then you would experience consonance. But if there is a break between your belief and your behavior, then you would experience psychological discomfort, which we call dissonance. So we simply can define dissonance as an internal state that results when the individual notices inconsistency between two or more attitudes, or between their attitude and your behavior. So either you are holding two views. For instance, you are saying cheating in exams is bad at one moment when you are with a group of friends, and with another set or group of friends you say, oh, there's nothing wrong with cheating in exams. So you are expressing two values or two attitudes that can engender dissonance. Or you believe that cheating in exams is bad, and yet you act out by cheating in exam. There's a clash between your belief and your behavior, and you are likely to experience dissonance. What are the implications of dissonance? Dissonance is an unpleasant feeling. It produces psychological discomfort. And so it makes the individual want to bring or change that discomfort in order to experience comfort. It's similar to hunger. Hunger is an unpleasant feeling. So when the individual is hungry, he is motivated to find food to curb the pangs of hunger. So in other words, the intensity of the dissonance you are experiencing will determine the motivation to beat down the dissonance. So how do people beat down dissonance? Several strategies are employed. But basically, the cognitive elements that produce dissonance are replaced or substituted with consonant elements. So if you believe that smoking is harmful, and yet you smoke, you will experience dissonance. In order to experience consonance, you're either changing a belief system or changing your behavior. But the question is it easy to change these beliefs or behavior? Perhaps it is a rational thing to do if you want to experience consonance. But according to the renowned social psychologist Alport, human beings are not rational beings. I'm sure you are surprised to hear this because you've heard in many contexts where people say that humans are rational beings. According to the cognitive dissonance theory, human beings are not rational beings, rather they are rationalizing beings. So dissonance theory rests upon the assumption that man is a rational animal. It does not rest upon that assumption. Rather, it suggests that man is a rationalizing animal. In other words, human as we are making every effort and attempt to rationalize our beliefs, rationalize our values, rationalize our behavior, so we do not experience dissonance. So how do we go about this rationalization? There are several strategies that we use to beat down dissonance. One of the basic strategies is to add on cognitions. So we say you can reduce dissonance by adding on cognitions. In other words, you are looking for several reasons or justifications to support a discrepant behavior. So in the example we used, you believe that smoking is harmful, and yet you smoke, and you are experiencing dissonance. How do you add on cognitions to beat down the dissonance? You perhaps will say that, oh, smoking helps me to relax. Smoking helps me to be alert, so I'm able to study my notes for exam. Smoking helps me to beat down my weight. Smoking helps me to socialize. Finding all the reasons to justify why you smoke, so you do not have to change the behavior. So in other words, we say that in relation to cognitive dissonance theory, the less leads to more effect. In other words, the less reasons you have for engaging in an attitude discrepant behavior, the more dissonance effects you would have. The reverse is true. And let's take it slowly. The less reasons you have for engaging in an attitude discrepant behavior, the more the dissonance effect. The reverse then would be what? The more reasons you have for engaging in an attitude discrepant behavior, the less dissonance that you would feel. So this is one strategy. You may want to try it to see if it makes you any better in relation to dissonance. Then you can alter one dissonant behavior. Besides justifying your behavior, you can modify your opinion or change your attitude so that they are consistent with your discrepant behavior. So that if you are a smoker, for instance, you may change your perceptions about smoking. You are only going to experience dissonance if you believe that smoking is harmful. But in order not to, smoking is harmful and you smoke. But in order not to experience dissonance, you change your belief system. So now you say smoking is not harmful. The research evidence on it is not even conclusive. Oh, I know people who've smoked all right and nothing has happened to them. So you are saying that it is not as dangerous as it's being put out there. Change your belief system to now say smoking is not harmful. And so if you smoke, you will not experience dissonance. Again, in relation to this, we say suffering leads to liking. So it may require that you alter your belief about something so that you do not experience dissonance. For instance, it may have taken you a lot of effort to study to get into the program. It takes you a lot of effort to write your exam. So if at the end of the whole course you do not get a grade or a class you like, you have no choice but to like it. Because if you do not like it, you would experience dissonance. You have suffered, and the only expectation is for you to like the outcome of what you have suffered for. Then we talk about another strategy called trivialization. You can minimize the importance of the discrepancy. In other words, you are beating down the discrepancy so you do not feel dissonance. So you are trivializing it. So for instance, you say that, oh, it doesn't matter if I smoke. Everybody smokes. Even religious leaders are smoking. My parents smoked. What? There is nothing wrong with it. You try to make it seem as not as something that is not important. It's not a big deal if I smoke. So once you trivialize it, make it of less importance, then you will not feel guilty, in a layman's words, about your smoking behavior. Another strategy you can use to beat down psychological discomfort, dissonance, is by reducing perceived choice. In other words, you convince yourself that you are not freely choosing a behavior, but rather circumstances are making you act in the way you are acting. You are being induced to act a certain way. If you had a choice, you would not have chosen that discrepant behavior. So for instance, you say, oh, I smoke because of the stress, not because I want to. The situation makes me do it. The circumstances make me do it, right? Because if you admit that you really chose a discrepant behavior, then you are held responsible for it. But if you make it seem like it is somebody else or some circumstance that is making you do it, and the choice is not freely made, then you can beat down the dissonance that you are experiencing. But ultimately, besides these 4 strategies of adding on cognitions, or altering one of the dissonant elements, or trivialization, or reducing perceived choice, you can just simply go ahead and do the rational thing. So you believe that smoking is harmful, and so you quit. But like I said in the beginning, it's not always easy to do the right thing or the rational thing. So often we all choose the path of least resistance. We do what is easier to do. We change what is easier to change. So if it's about choice and it's easier to do that, we resort to that. If it's about trivialization and it's easier to do that, we do that. But the ultimate bottom line is ultimately to get people to do the rational thing in the changing of their behavior. So having said all of these, can you look at this question and attempt to answer it? With dissonance theory, suffering leads to liking, and the less leads to more effect. Can you explain these concepts? You have to suffer for something in order to like it. And if you do it and the outcome is not good, what happens? Dissonance. And if dissonance happens, how do you manage it? The less justification you have for engaging in a discrepant behavior, the more the dissonance effects. True? How do you manage it? Right? So simply what this session has done is to end the discussion on attitude change. We looked at persuasion where people are helped to change their attitude with information from others. But with dissonance theory, it comes from within, the internal state that makes you uncomfortable, that then motivates you to change an attitude discrepant behavior. Dissonance is effective in helping people develop positive attitudes and behavior. Once you are feeling uncomfortable about a belief system or a behavior, and you do not want to be a hypocrite or do not want to exhibit double standards, then you are motivated to change a behavior that is not socially commended. Thank you.